how's it going? And welcome back to the Blue Army Podcast. This is episode 49, and I am very, very happy, always happy, in fact, buzzing to add onto the positive vibes. That's this week I am joined by none other than everybody's favourite co-host, Wills is here. How's it going, Wills? You all right, man?
Yes, not bad. Not bad.
Been an up and down week this week, mate. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you the rundown, and then you'll get an insight about what we're going to talk about on today's episode. Yes. Episode 49, one away from 50. Nearly a year. Right. So this week on the podcast, myself and Wills will be, first of all, diving into Carlisle's last league win. That was a 1-0 win against Scunthorpe just the Saturday gone. Then we'll have a little glance over the unfortunate news that Carlisle were knocked out of the EFL trophy. We'll give that about as much attention as what we've given the EFL trophy throughout its little existence here on the Blue Army Podcast. And then we're going to finish things off with, I think, this is what everyone loves about January, transfer news, the ins and outs of the early days of the January transfer window. So, Wills, mate, that's what we're going to be talking about today on the podcast. I mean, as far as listening to or seeing highlights and stuff like that, did you see everything that was going on or listen to everything that was going on in Carlisle's 1-0 victory over Scunthorpe?
Yeah, I did. I listened to it and then I watched the highlights.
So, mate, what I'm obviously boiling down to is the match crack. Let's go through Carlisle United's starting lineup for their game against Scunthorpe. So, in goals, we had Mark Howard, then we had Mellor at right back, Feeney, MacDonald and Armour then over on left back duty, with Gibson, Whelan, Guy and Dickinson playing in the midfield, with Fishburn, the mighty Fish, and John Mellish sort of just behind Fishburn or perhaps up front with Fishburn. I couldn't really see from what the things that I've seen.
Commentators have been describing him as if he were a striker now, the position has been played. So,
so obviously, mate, that's what's caught my attention straight out of the blocks, is the fact that John Mellish is getting pushed back into a forward position a little bit more regularly under Keith Millen. In your opinion, mate, what is John Mellish's best position on the pitch for Carlisle United? And obviously, you can pick whatever formation you like.
I think he's kind of found himself in that thing where he kind of it doesn't seem to have a best position anymore, because you wouldn't really say defender anymore. He's not played as a defender in 2 years. He did well under certain circumstances as a midfielder. And I think we kind of briefly mentioned on the last pod about how kind of if Carlisle are playing a certain way and there's certain players around him, then he can kind of bring something to the table in central midfield, but it's not as a traditional centre midfielder. He's been thrown up front on a couple of occasions. He's not scored in those occasions, and I haven't seen him play up front. It's been a couple of away matches. So I can't really comment. I mean, I'd say midfielder, centre midfield, but with heavy caveats in that he never really fit in there as a player that you could just call on and say, he's a central midfielder, we need a central midfielder, bang him in. So he's kind of his own thing at the moment. He's not a defender, he's not a midfielder, he's not an attacker, he's just a John Mellish.
I mean, what I like about John Mellish is obviously his attitude on the pitch, and what I would say his strongest technical ability that he has in terms of how he plays the game is how he actually reads the game. And that's how he can turn up in the positions, or he did so fashionably last season, turning up in the right place at the right time to score. They weren't worldies. He wasn't scoring worldies, was he? He was in the right position at the right time. Maybe Millen's kind of thinking if he's in a forward position, he's more naturally going to be in those goal scoring positions on a more regular occasion. But go on.
But also, we're struggling for goals at the moment, so maybe Millen is just kind of trying out a player who we know can score goals. And will he be the answer to our goal-scoring problems? I feel like, it is sort of like nobody who's played up there has made a real case for why they should be always considered, always starting up there. So I guess maybe Keith Millen feels like there's nothing to lose by trying out different things. In this case, trying Mellish as an out-and-out striker.
Now, obviously, we're going to get onto the transfer news a little bit later on, but the options up front were limited in the way that Brad Young went back to Aston Villa. So maybe it does speak volumes about Millen's opinion of Mellish being able to play up front is the fact that he's all right with certain players going out of the club and using John Mellish up front instead. Maybe that's his preferred person to play in that position. So, I mean, in that sense, there's a fair bit of backing there. I just want to quickly have a glance at the bench and see what attacking options we had there. Young was on the bench. Abraham's not. Clough not. Are they both injured at the moment?
Is this the Harrogate one you're talking about? No, sorry, the Scunthorpe one. Yeah. I think Abraham's was it a COVID thing? Because we had a very light bench against Scunthorpe. I think we only named 5 players on it. I think the players that were missing from it, because this was before Dinzey had gone back as well. So I think Abraham's, Dinzey, and anyone else you can think of who you might have expected to be on the bench, not on the bench. I think they were all sort of self-isolating with COVID.
Right, okay. Because obviously there's a lack of attacking options on the bench. And then, I mean, obviously we still had Young for the Scunthorpe game, but by the Harrogate game, he was gone as well. So, I mean, the bench was Norman, Devine, Riley, Charters, Ellis and Young. So obviously Ellis and Charters quite young players there. Yeah. Charters obviously regularly on the bench. Ellis not so much. Norman coming back from injury.
I think Ellis on the bench as well is kind of like just because we had to, to fill numbers. I don't think he was on there with any real expectation of getting on. I think it was just we were looking at potentially only having 4 players on the bench. So
I feel like it might speak to who Millen kind of fancies in that youth team and giving that sort of match day preparation experience to first in the pecking order.
Yeah.
So it might be an indication. Obviously, it's a light indication, and you're really starting to see the fact that Carlisle. I mean, yeah, we've had a couple of transfer movements now, and the squad numbers will be picking up again after the COVID, like you've just mentioned there. But looking a little bit thin on the ground in a lot of positions now, not just necessarily in the obvious position where we're like, we need a goal scorer. Well, actually, we've got a lot of attackers registered at the club, but what we really need is maybe a central defender and a central midfielder option, because you would say Riley being on that bench against Scunthorpe maybe a bit too early for him. You really don't want to risk him getting injured, because you'd like to see him return to the form that he was at the early points of the season, the sort of person that got the season off to the stuttering start that it eventually was.
Yeah, and we've got like 2 proper right backs now, so you maybe think that kind of maybe means the end of players like Riley and Devine being asked to fill in that position, because now it is going to be Mellor or Senior.
Yeah, and obviously we'll get to crap about Senior a little bit later. I think Mellor's a good option. Senior sounds like a good option on paper from his backstory, but we'll get to reveal a bit more of that a little bit later on. Yeah. Now, Millen, in my opinion, mate, with Whelan being in the central midfield position, with Guy, with Dickinson, Gibson, Fishburn, Feeney, McDonald, Armour and Mellor and Howard really looking like regular starters for him. More so recently, they seem to be gathering a bit of momentum, and the formation that he seems to be playing seems to be the system that he's maybe enjoying playing. So basically what I'm trying to say is he doing the best with the squad that he has at his disposal? And then maybe by the end of January, when he's been able to bring in a couple of his own recruits, will we see a change in the strategy? Or do you think this is the strategy that Millen plays and we're just going to be looking for stronger players to fill in certain positions and just strengthen the team, but we're going to play the way that we're playing now?
I mean, he made some quite big changes to the way we played as soon as he came in. I think it's probably fair to say that although maybe not ideally the way he'd like us to play, I think that, that kind of like a bit more of a passing game when he took over is I think kind of like what he wants, what he wants us to play and what he'll be recruiting players for us to play.
Yeah. Oh, do you know what I've just forgot, mate?
You didn't tell the joke of the week.
I haven't done the joke of the week, have I? Well, as we sometimes like to start with here on the Blue Army podcast, it's time for the Blue Army podcast joke of the week. Is he having a laugh? I think he's trying to. It's the Blue Army podcast I can't believe we nearly forgot this, mate. I found a good one this week as well. Unbelievable. Right, here we go. My fortune cookie said, Chinese takeaway this week. My fortune cookie said that something positive would happen to me this week, and it finally happened, mate. Do you know what this coronavirus thing is? Nightmare. Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't worth it, was it?
I didn't get it.
You didn't get it. I said my fortune cookie said I was gonna get something positive. Something positive would happen to me this week.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Do you know what this coronavirus thing is? Yeah, nightmare. Yeah. Right. Okay. We'll move swiftly on away from that. Carlisle took the lead against Scunthorpe around the 40th minute of the game. McDonald on the end of a Callum Guy corner, something we would regularly say last season, a Callum Guy corner leading to a goal, a Callum Guy free kick leading to a goal. Nice to see that happening again here. McDonald steaming in at the back post, headers the ball pretty well, does really well, I think, to get the height off the ground and get above his man in the air, looking strong in the air there. It took a deflection on its way into the back of the net, but we'll take it, mate, 1-0. And I mean, it was enough to win the game, but the goal itself, mate, you've got to say it's nice to see Callum Guy finding people in the box again from those corners and us being able to add those goals to our games once again. Yeah,
I mean, it's not necessarily been that Callum Guy's delivery's always been terrible this season. It's often just been that there's not been people able to get on the end of it. So, and on this occasion, someone did get on the end of it, even though it was kind of like a bit of a way out. It didn't look like the most obvious goal scoring opportunity, but it resulted in a goal.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't pretty the way it ended up in the back of the net, but it's a vital goal. It's right at the end of half time. Both teams came out for the second half raring to go. On paper, mate, there was 32 shots in the game in total. 15 Carlisle, 17 Scunthorpe. So obviously lots of balls flying about the pitch, lots backwards and forwards, but on display, the glaringly obvious thing that both teams have in common that's keeping us glued to the bottom of the table: lack of quality up front. That many shots should lead to more than just one goal in a game, and you can see why both teams are down the bottom end of the league. That second half, the lack of quality for both teams up front, just glaringly obvious. Now, what I want to draw attention to is Gibson. It is the fact that he can break free from defenders, and he looks like an absolute quality player from the halfway line going into the box. But when he gets into the box, it's mental how it all just goes away. What do you think that is? Do you think that's a lack of decision making, a lack of experience, a lack of confidence in front of goal? Obviously, it's really, he's from outside the box a fantastic player, but it just seems like if he ever gets into the box, it all crumbles for him.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably things they can work on in terms of his final delivery, and that's the reason why he is where he is. In his career, I think he was released from Bradford before going to Sligo, so there's reason why he's not kind of pushed on up the leagues, but kind of whether part of that is also the players around him, and whether there's players and not enough players wanting the ball when he gets into a position where he can put a cross in, because sometimes players will suddenly become almost different players just because the players around them are different. So I think it can be like a bit of a, well, teams like us at the moment can sometimes kind of make good players look worse than they are, and that could be a factor in what you described there.
Yeah, I just, maybe it is. Obviously, you just see that much quality, like I said, between the halfway line and just outside the box. But when he gets in the box, it all just seems to crumble a little bit for him. Somebody didn't crumble for on the day in that second half against Scunthorpe was Mark Howard. He had a really good game. Not necessarily that he was being tested to straining points. Most of the shots were either down his throat or wide, but it is important that you have a goalkeeper that has the experience to keep the concentration, to not make the mistakes, to keep the cool head, and maybe lead the defence through the moments of the game where it's important. So, I mean, for me, that was a really good performance from Mark Howard, showing a great bit of experience and showing off just a really quality display from him. Just being a cool-headed consistency in that game was really important for us. Did anyone sort of stand out for you? Did Mark Howard stand out for you like that?
Well, I mean, I've only seen highlights of the game and listened to it on radio, so I don't feel I can necessarily kind of judge everyone's performance that well. The one player that seemed to be standing out as doing well on the day was Morgan Feeney. And looking through the highlights, it's kind of there's one moment where Scunthorpe threw on goal, and it's Feeney that races back to make the block, and that's kind of just going off the highlights. It's the one kind of big highlight for us, apart from the goal, obviously. The kind of if you were just going through the highlights, looking to put ticks in the in the good performance column for players, then the only thing that the highlights really show that you can put a tick in is a tick for Morgan Feeney for that block. And it sounded, listening to the radio, like he was having a good game. So,
yeah, there was a post-match interview with Rob McDonald, and they were asking him about the goal and how it felt. And they had a question about Morgan Feeney in there as well. Just sort of what's it like playing alongside Morgan Feeney? And he said he seems to be adapting really well to League Two football, and he's quite a vocal player. So obviously his performances are getting noticed. I didn't necessarily pick up on that. So well said. I mean, for me, well, we may as well say who your man of the match is. So if you're going to say Morgan Feeney, then I'm going to say Mark Howard, like we've just spoken about. So yeah. So we'll get those written down and out the way. So yeah, I'll just add those. Mate, that might be a first for Morgan Feeney,
Yeah. It's certainly had some plaudits on this channel every now and again, but I don't think any of us have given him a man of the match before. But I seem to remember games that he was doing well where other players had also done well. So he was maybe pipped to Man of the Match award on a few occasions.
Yeah, maybe when there's a goal scorer involved, he would have maybe got overlooked on certain occasions. But yeah, mate, I mean, really good win. Reaction to the game doesn't really do that much in terms of pushing Carlisle to crazy safety. We got that game in hand, 22 points played, 22 points.
Game in hands feel meaningless when you're in the relegation mix because more often than not, the games that you then go on and lose. So it's like, unless you've got like 3 or 4 games in hand on teams, normally when you look at the teams down the bottom, if one of them's played a game less than the others, more often than not, that game in hand then gets lost. It's an opportunity for us to increase our points at the expense of other teams who don't have that game in hand. But my expectations are low. I'm not sure who it's against. I know we have this rearranged one this weekend against Bradford, but I think other teams are also playing at the weekend.
Yeah, I think is it Hartlepool Tuesday night? Is that the one that's been rearranged?
Is it coming up? Yeah, it was. I haven't actually looked. So Saturday there are quite a few teams playing, including Scunthorpe, Oldham, Stevenage. Barrow aren't playing because I think they can be considered to be in the relegation battle now. They're on poor form. Colchester, another one that are playing. So that's like 5 of the 6, 5 of the current bottom 6. Tuesday coming, no, we're not playing. And then Saturday after that. So I'm not sure. It's the Tuesday after that we're playing. Yeah, we've got that game against Hartlepool and Colchester are playing, but the other teams down there aren't. So it's Tuesday the 18th of January. Game in hand.
Equal on points with Colchester, and then obviously just 1 point between Barrow. It is a really tight sort of like bottom 6 there.
I mean, seeing that game in hands again, home to Hartlepool, it does make me feel a bit more positive about kind of looking at the game in hand as a potential points because Hartlepool aren't on great form at the moment. They started the season well. Have really slid since then.
Yeah, I mean, it is fortunately wide open, and if you can get on a little run of form, you could very quickly be out of that little bottom 6 situation. And other teams, there's plenty of teams down this bottom end that can start drifting away. Oldham look to be drifting away now. They've played 24 games, only 18 points. Oldham definitely starting to look like a bit of a drift away team. And hopefully somebody can pile on the misery for Scunthorpe or Stevenage and we can just start like getting away from them. But if a team like Colchester or Barrow gets swept under, then so be it, if that means we get that extra bit of safety. I
mean, Barrow only 1 point ahead of us. They've lost 3 of the last 5. So and their game at the weekend is against. Okay, so they're not playing at the weekend. Because they're in the FA Cup still.
Yeah, they're FA Cup in it up.
Yeah, so like we play Bradford. Tough game. But if we even get a point from that, then we are level on points with Barrow. We'll still be well behind them on goal difference. Yeah, I mean, there's chances, and I think those 6 teams, Bristol Rovers seem to be able to win games, and they've got like a few more points than the others.
Yeah.
So the bottom 6, Barrow, Colchester, us, Stevenage, Scunthorpe, Oldham, seems to be the relegation battle as it's forming.
Yeah. So plenty of competition down there, plenty of opportunities, and a long season still ahead. So I mean, I think we can do enough. I think we're good enough. But I'm not going to bet a house on it just Yeah, they Carlisle were in action for a second time this week, just on Tuesday evening in the EFL Trophy. They lost 1-0 to Harrogate Town, who do seem to be a bit of a difficult team for us to beat of late. And it was a bit of a mistake for the goal. I don't know if you've seen the goal, mate. Unfortunately, Mark Howard kicked a bit of a missed kick from the goal kick position straight into one of Harrogate's attacking players, and the ball was quickly dispatched back into the Carlisle United goal, and that was the only goal of the game, and that was enough for us to be knocked out of the cup. Now, we haven't given the trophy a lot of coverage. Obviously, when we win, we'll mention it because it's something nice to mention. But obviously, being knocked out is a little bit of news. But I took to social media for some reaction, and Courtney Johnson was kind enough to contribute. Courtney Johnson said, "I would say that I think it's a shame that we got knocked out of Pizza Trophy, as would have been nice to get a cup or at least a final. I think we played very, very well, little unlucky on the night, and the lads are playing much better." So, I mean, yeah, we have been playing better. The form has been going in the right direction for Carlisle United. The trophy maybe being, as a League Two side in the position that we're in, a bit of an unwelcome distraction, potentially, with the small squad that we have at the moment. What do you have to say about the trophy, mate? Do you have any feelings about being knocked out just at this point? Or do you feel like we've done well to get to this point?
I think it's the furthest we've gotten, you know, the new format of the trophy. Part of me is, well, I mean, the thing that they always kind of like say about the trophy on BBC is, you know, whatever you think about it, you get through to the next round, there's some money for your club there, and we all need some money. If we got to the final, it would put me in a bit of a dilemma, because I'm not a fan of the trophy. I don't go to the games in it. I used to enjoy it when it was a proper team for the lower leagues, but now it's become a bit of a training ground for Premier League players, for the youth teams. It feels like an attempt to justify the whole B teams thing. So I don't go to the trophy games. If we got to the final, I would really kind of like resent the idea of Carlisle being at Wembley and not going, and it would make me kind of tempted to go. So in a way, it's a little bit of a relief that won't be happening this season. I don't have to wrestle with that particular conundrum. But in terms of just kind of like seeing us do well, especially as we're trying to fight relegation, and you want to kind of, you want to hear that we've played well in the game, because it kind of like, boost the players' confidence and stuff. So I still always hope that we do well when we're playing, and I listen to it on the radio. And it does sound like we did, they didn't have many big criticisms of our performance, the commentators, apart from probably just not taking chances as usual.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be one of those situations where there's good and bad to both situations. The money in the cup is obviously a nice incentive. Yeah. The money with the Premier League teams being in the cup is a little bit more than it used to be. Apparently, that's one of the reasons why they've kind of been put into the cup, as well as the sponsorship and all that kind of thing. There's a little bit more money trickling down from the top, I believe. But yeah, it's bittersweet. I don't think we could have really expected to get much further in the cup. It would have been a bonus if we did. The draw would have maybe had to have been more favourably again to get us any further down the line. But it is one of those situations where I'm fine with it. And I feel like they didn't embarrass themselves. They from what I've heard and from what I've seen, put in quite spirited performance. And we all know the difficulties of playing at a place like Harrogate, especially on a Tuesday night. And I think on top of that, there was only about 400 people there in total, 150 Carlisle fans. So the trophy itself is a bit of a, I don't know, the attendance compared to what it used to be. I mean, I remember going to like Carlisle versus Leeds in the Johnson's Paint Trophy semi-final, and there being like 10,000 people there on a Tuesday night at Brunton Park under the lights, and then when you compare that to games where I don't think they've had over 1,000 fans at Brunton Park in this trophy since it started in this format, and it's sad to see a decline of an outlet like that, because I do feel like that trophy is important at this level of the game. There should be an opportunity for a day out at Wembley at this level of the game.
Yeah, Peter Murphy scoring that goal when we beat Brentford. That was a good day out, and
that's it. And you deserve those, as fans of lower league teams, you deserve those days out. Mate, we'll jump over to something that is also a little bit bittersweet, depending on who your favourites are and what your opinion of certain players are. The transfer ins and outs of Carlisle United so far this season. That's right, the January transfer window is finally upon us, and Keith Millen can start flexing his contact book that we've all heard so much about. It's time. Oh, yes, it's time to see what Millen can really do with his little black book of contacts. But first, mate, we'll cover the transfer outs, so then we can end on a high of talking about the transfer ins, I suppose. I can never get my mouth around the young man from Arsenal, Jonathan Dejaney.
Yeah.
He's on his way out. I mean, not a lot of note. I don't think he did that much wrong in the about 5 or 6 appearances that he made for Carlisle. Obviously, he
had one bad performance. I can't remember who it was against, but I can remember there being one game where either us or just the fans in general being quite critical of him. Can't remember which game it was.
I'll tell you what it reminds me. Do you remember Tom Cruise?
Yeah.
The loanee from Arsenal. He reminded me a little bit of him. He turned up and he was kind of put into the first team in the first 2 weeks of being with the squad, and he just looked a little bit sort of like, whoa. What's this? I haven't played men's football before. I'm getting bullied off the ball a bit. Whoa, I don't necessarily belong here too much. But he did look like he was getting on a bit, and he did look like there was a bit of development there. But obviously, we don't have the luxury to develop players right now. We need players that are ready to go, and hopefully that's Millen's thinking anyway. So Jonathan Dejaney is on his way out of Brunton Park, and I mean, it was only a half-season loan anyway. I think that's what people need to remember about the two of these releases, is that they were only signed to half-season loans anyway. So this is when their contracts would have ended anyway. And obviously, you can look to extend certain players' contracts, but sometimes they get a better offer, and you're not privy to that information until that deal goes across the line. And also, I mean, we've all had the experience of somebody leaving us at the start of January, and then at the end of January, we re-signed them again on loan. That's happened a couple of times at Carlisle. So, it's not necessarily a goodbye forever, but maybe just a goodbye for now for some of these lads. As we'll also talk about Brad Young, who's gone back to Aston Villa. That was also just a half-season loan. Brad Young, I can't believe this when I looked it up. I think he played 20 games in total for Carlisle, which seems like a lot of games. I think he scored 6 goals in total as well in all competitions. So it's not respectable numbers, right?
Yeah, no, he kind of he had a good spell. He was kind of he was partnering Fishburne for 3 or 4 games in a row or something like that.
Mm. And I quite like them two playing up front together. But obviously, Millen has spoken about this transfer, and he did sort of say that part of the reason why he's sort of gone for now is that he can't guarantee the fact that he's going to play first team football. So hopefully Millen has something up his sleeve and thinks that he's going to be able to get someone in who's better than Brad Young. Otherwise, you wouldn't maybe look to have.
He already has. Yeah, I mean, he already has kind of brought in essentially on paper the Brad Young replacement, as in a teenage striker on loan from a Premier League team.
Yeah, well, we may as well talk about old Tyrese Omotoyi. Tyrese Omotoyi. On loan from Norwich. He's a 19-year-old. He's previously had a short loan spell with Leyton Orient. He doesn't have any goals under his belt, unfortunately. No. In any
Didn't
kind
play
of
much for Orient.
No. So, I mean, where's this one came from?
Don't know, Posworth's contact book, maybe. He was on loan for a League Two team in the first half of the season, so he's kind of in among that pool of players who sort of managers and directors of football at this level all know that they're available, and they their parent clubs are probably thinking of League Two as being the level they want to loan them out to. So he's ended up coming to us. I think I'd probably say that expectations are low, given the fact that he hadn't barely featured, didn't really get to do much for Leyton Orient. They're doing a lot better than we are in the league, obviously, but they're not so high above us. There's not so much of a gulf between ourselves and Orient that you would expect a player to struggle at Orient and then come here and start tearing it up. But kind of like Brad Young, he's got a chance now to do something. He'll maybe get more of a chance than he would have got at Orient, because Orient will have better strikers ahead of him. Whereas here, there's a bit of a void. There isn't anyone who's kind of like, well, this person's definitely starting up front, so you're fighting off the bench. He could get a fairly early start.
It does just feel a little bit underwhelming, a little bit unambitious. Obviously, a lot of Carlisle fans crying out for more experience in that position.
Yeah, we've all seen, we kind of like know what the expectations are when it comes to teenagers on loan from the Premier League. The vast majority of them, having never played proper senior football before, just kind of completely behind on the kind of the competitive aspect of the game. But it's a skill that they have to learn at some point, and hopefully we get one who is a quick learner, and because the players who are going to go on and do well, at some point they've never played a competitive fixture before, and it's all a bit new to them. And I think, like you said before, whoa, but they all have to go through that. And in amongst them, there's going to be some who quickly kind of get to grips with that. And so we can just hope that Omotoyi is going to kind of like adjust to that aspect of the game quickly. I think Brad Young, I don't think he was, I think he was kind of like quite well adjusted in that respect. He did look competitive. He didn't look like your standard Premier League teenager who is just, completely astonished by the fact that people try and tackle him. So, if he's better than Brad Young in that respect, then I'll be encouraged.
You'd like to think it's a step in the right direction. You'd like to think that, in at least Keith Millen's opinion, it's a better option.
Yeah,
and that's
I want to
why
be positive. Yeah, I want to be positive. I don't want to just kind of pour pessimism on the poor lad.
Yeah. In terms of finances and things like that, I mean, God knows what goes on with any of these loan moves these days. If it's kind of like a conversation between two people and barely any money can get exchanged, or you can end up paying the full wages. You just never know with loan deals.
I feel like if we're loaning a player off the Premier League, it's almost like we're doing them a favour as much as they're doing us a favour. And, I don't know how much we contribute towards wages. I think sometimes you don't contribute anything to them. So I'd kind of hope that, I mean, certainly if we're talking about a player who hasn't found his feet at this level yet, so, if you've got a Premier League club who has a player in the first half of the season, really kind of like gets off to a runner and does really well, then maybe they might start saying that we're going to try and get you a loan and ask the club that we're loaning you to pay some money towards you because you're an asset and because we can. Players who have very little experience of competitive football and haven't kind of done much in previous loan spells at this level, part of me is like, I don't see how a club like Norwich can expect any money for it. But, maybe they do. I don't know what goes on.
Yeah, no, I can imagine it being one of those loan deals where it is one of those like experience in exchange for, just experience. Yeah, you're not paying for anything. You're giving the lad some experience. And if he doesn't play any games, then he's not going to be there for that long, or however these things seem to work themselves out. Now there was another out and another in. So Killian Leslie, one of the youth prospects, he was handed a short-term pro deal, but was loaned out to Workington for a part of the early part of last season, and he's been released. So that's it for Keelan in terms of Carlisle United for now. I never really heard much about him. He seemed to obviously be worth that extension in time, or was ruled to be. I mean, you do like to keep tracks of these players when they end up going to wherever they end up going to, and obviously hats off to him. Did you hear anything about the lad's reputation?
No. I mean, a few of the players who, the first and second year pros have made a little bit of an impact, clearly in training and being able to get on the bench and, or they've gone out on loan and done well. You look at Sam Fishburne, who's gone from not even a professional to getting those goals for Lancaster and now being part of the first team squad. Killian Leslie was just one of those ones. We didn't really hear anything of him. He can't have made that much of an impression, and maybe it's just kind of Keith Millen kind of clearing the books a little bit and kind of saying to certain players that, I don't really have any use for you right now, or I don't, you haven't made the progress that some of the other players in your position have, and we're just gonna release you now and not kind of like keep you hanging on. I don't know. It must be a difficult conversation to have, but I think it just seems like it is one of the ones that hasn't kind of stepped up since becoming a professional.
Yeah, it kind of just seems that it's fizzled out, unfortunately, and whatever sort of flame there was in terms of his talent and development, just to it's fell by the wayside, unfortunately, and yeah, new management can kind of end up with that kind of thing. Who knows if Chris Beach would have made the same decision, but. One more transfer in, mate, and it's Joel Senior. Joel Senior has a bit of an interesting story. He's been around a bit. He was released by Oldham as a youngster, but then signed by Burnley in 2019 after he had a breakthrough season with Cruzen Ashton, which is a team in the suburbs of Manchester in the National League North. He didn't play a single game for Burnley, unfortunately, and has ended up back with Altrincham. I believe it was a bit of a one of those deals where it was COVID. He got a release. Obviously, his last experience was with non-league teams, and the Altrincham sides were full of players that were in the his former Ashton Cruzen side just a year previously. I mean, he must have done something right to get the opportunity at Burnley only 3 years ago. I mean, it's interesting, right? I feel like this is an interesting signing, this one. It's one of those guys that might actually turn into something. He's only 22 years of age, and he's a right-sided defender. Now, I don't know if that means he's a right back or a centre-back that likes to play on the right side. I assume that means he's a right back. But I mean, he seems like he's made from the right kind of stock. He seems like the physicality of a player that belongs in the Football League. Burnley saw something in him and obviously felt like he belonged at some level in the English football professional game. And now he's back at that level, and hopefully he's going to push on for us.
Yeah, I mean, there's, you get a few players who have career paths like him where, he's released from Oldham, just as we're talking about Killian Leslie being released from Carlisle. He's had that kind of like false start to his career. And I think after that, it's just kind of like if the player has the drive to succeed, then they may have to kind of drop down to, I guess, Curzon Ashton still be semi-pro, but you have to kind of like drop down to a level where
they've got money. They've got money over there, mate. They've got money over there. I think there was I don't know if this is bullshit, right? But I'll tell the story anyway. So there was rumours that when David Silva signed for Manchester City, he wanted Manchester City to sign one of his mates. And so they took him on trial, and they said no, he's rubbish. So we can't sign him. But then basically bankrolled Ashton the wages of this player, and then so he signed with Ashton. So he'd be around David Silva, obviously, but he wouldn't be on the books at Man City officially at all. So I mean, they've got the hands in pies, Ashton, and so they do have a bit of money under the belt. They've been around a while as well. They're one of those non-league teams that they've never really gone up to a professional level of football, but they've been around a while. They were only a stone's throw away from where I used to live. They ran Droylsden out of business. They survived Bury as well. So you've got to think, Man City are sinking a lot of teams in the Manchester area. The fact that their fan base has grown so much in the last 10 to 15 years since the influx of the money and all the great signings and all the interest they've been able to gather. They've drawn fans or prospective future fans that might have grown up in those Bury areas away from those teams, and over the years that's kind of led to less support, and so there's just not that fan base there for these teams. And Droylsden got dragged under, and like I said, Bury got dragged under, but Ashton seems to be doing fine over there, and it's because they've got a bit of dollar. They've got a bit of dollar.
There's a guy that I used to work with, Carlisle fan, who also posts on a football forum that I post on, so I kind of know him two ways. And he moved to Manchester a few years ago and kind of started following Curzon Ashton, and to the point that his profile on the football forum now says that he supports Carlisle and Curzon Ashton.
Oh, what a quirky guy.
But yeah, so I mean, I don't know, they must be maybe kind of, I guess with these non-league teams, sometimes it's about providing the right kind of match day experience to kind of average football-going hipster who maybe wants a nice craft ale and,
I mean, that's well said. I enjoy my time at Jolly's.
Also artisanal pie.
I like pre-season, mate. I like those games because I was going to go to Lancaster as well. But
should we go to Carlisle City?
At Guildford. I used to play at Guildford Park, man. That's crazy.
So did you play those at Guildford Park? All right, yeah.
yeah. I played at Carlisle Spartans.
Nice old place now. I went there for, United played them in a pre-season friendly. It was a few years ago. Hallam Hope was playing.
I take the dog. I take the dog for a walk because I live like down the other end of the railway track. So I just take the dog for a walk down the railway tracks, go over the bridge, and like the gate's always open. You just got to go and talk to the groundsman if he sees you and be like, "I'm all right, letting the dog have a run round," and he's just like, "As long as you pick up his shit, like."
But yeah, I mean, we should do a Carlisle City special.
Carlisle City special. Do you know what, actually, mate? In the early days of the podcast where I was all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit more, what would you say, naive, let's say. I was looking for little bits of content and things I could do, and I thought, that would be a great idea, right? I'll get one of those football manager modifications so it goes down to Carlisle City's level of non-league football, and then I'll do like a sponsored like Twitch stream or something like that, and I'll bring them up the league kind of thing. I contacted them to see if they they were all right with me using their name or whatever, and they just didn't bother getting back in contact with me. But to be fair, go on.
There was a non-league team that did that. There's a guy who has a YouTube channel and does footy manager on there, and he did that with Tolo Town, and he ended up being their shirt sponsor in real life.
No way. See, I could have sponsored their away kit or something, I doubt they would have charged me that much money for it, But yeah, I mean that's all by the by. Obviously, that's all by the by. I mean that's all the transfer news, mate. I think Joel Senior's an interesting proposition. I hope he can crack on. I'm just trying to see how much of a deal he's signed. An 18-month deal he's signed with the club. So obviously that bit of extra time for him to press on. Now, before I let you go, Wills. Carlisle United's next opponent is Bradford City. We're going to that game. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But let's do something we haven't done in a while, which is give a prediction on a scoreline for Bradford City. You look ready to go first. That was a clap. That wasn't thunder or anything, in case you're wondering, listening. That was Will's clap of excitement for being able to give a prediction. Once again, here on the Blue Army podcast, what are you saying for Carlisle's game against Bradford on Saturday?
0-0.
0-0. Another one. That's what we had to sit through against Barrow.
Yeah, I think Bradford probably, I think they're having some difficulty scoring at the moment. I kind of wanted to be positive, but I think I was positive last time, so I still think 0-0. It wouldn't be a terrible result.
Maybe not, but I think Tyrese Otamatei might just steal it for Carlisle United. So I'm going to say 1-0 Carlisle United, And let's give us a goal to celebrate, man. Give us a goal to cheer. I'm expecting there to be a little bit of a crowd this weekend because obviously we've had the last couple of games called off. And so I'm expecting there to be a little bit of a swell at Brunton Park. Nothing massive, but I reckon about 5,000 people will be at Brunton Park, mate. I'm predicting that as well. And we're doing all the predictions today.
Kind of our Boxing Day, New Year's Day rolled into one kind of attendance.
Well, maybe just obviously because it's Boxing Day and New Year's Eve, attendance normally rely on the fact that people don't have work or anything like that or haven't been at work the last day and blah, blah, blah. But now, obviously, it's a little bit later on in January. So I reckon there'll be a little bit of a swell, but I don't think there'll be anywhere near the size of like a Boxing Day crowd or anything like that, unfortunately. But, mate, I'm looking forward to the game. I'm looking forward to seeing you on Saturday. We'll sort that out in due course. But for now, mate, let's say goodbye to the listeners. This has been episode 49 of the Blue Army podcast. Next week, it will be episode 50, and I don't know what we're going to do. We'll figure something out. It'll be a lot of fun. Maybe there'll be a couple of special guests popping in and out. We've done that kind of thing before. I can see who's available and who I might be able to get roped in. But, mate, it's been a lot of fun talking to you, Wills, today on the podcast. Thank you very much for joining me. And, I'll maybe see you again next week if you're up for it.
Indeed, yeah. Well, I'll see you on Saturday.
Well, yeah, I'll see you on Saturday, and if maybe we'll get a bit of social media content off the back of that and take some funny old photos.
Nice. If it's a nice, exciting game, then
I mean, hopefully
if I'm wrong, me saying it's going to be 0-0. If it is 0-0, then you obviously if it's 0-0, then it's up to us or up to you. You're the podcast person to come up with some exciting content. If it's an exciting game, then you don't need to try so hard.
Don't give away all the secrets. Let's hope for a 4-3 victory for Carlisle United against Bradford. And on
Christian Abraham's hat trick.
Wow, I mean, just COVID recovery at its finest. Hopefully we'll steamroll, mate. Hopefully we'll just have one of those freakish games.
He came on against Harrogate.
Was it you that predicted? Was it you that predicted Carlisle were going to beat somebody 4-0 at some point this season on the half-term review? So, I mean, maybe you'll prove yourself wrong and we'll have a freakish result against Bradford. But, mate, I've really enjoyed this episode. I've had a lot of fun. Apart from the joke of the week, that was an absolute stinker. But, mate,
it could well be my fault for just not being switched on enough.
I mean, well, maybe see if the listeners want to make a comment about if you want to blame me for having a bad joke or you want to blame Wills for not understanding the joke, give us a little comment somewhere. We'll appreciate that. Spotify, I want to make people aware, Spotify have started to make people able to give 5-star ratings, 1-star ratings, and make comments and things like that for podcasts now. So if you do listen to the Blue Army podcast on Spotify, please give us a 5-star rating. It gets us out there. It gets us to the top of recommendation lists, and it just means that we can crack on and keep developing and keep moving forward. And hopefully, a year from now, in our 2-year anniversary, I'll be announcing some kind of sponsor that can take all the stress away from my bank account. But yeah, it's thank you very much, Wills, for joining me, and that's enough from us, mate. So there's nothing else to really say apart from bye for now.
Bye.
I always have to. Where's the record button? Need to extend it. There we go.
Leave that bit.